So you've probably seen the headlines, right? Unrest in Iran over here, a massive crisis in Venezuela over there. And look, on the surface, they seem totally disconnected. I mean, they're thousands of miles apart. But what if they're not separate stories at all? What if they're actually two chapters in the same book? A story about power, about geography, and about a global order that's being shaken up right in front of us. All right, so let's just dive right in with a huge question. For decades, the United States has been the undisputed top dog, right? The world's superpower. But could these events, the ones in Iran and Venezuela, be signs that this whole era of dominance is, well, facing its biggest challenge yet? That's exactly what we're going to dig into. So here's our game plan for connecting these dots. First, we're going to look at the big picture, this idea of a shifting world order. Then we'll zoom right into our two case studies, Iran and Venezuela. After that, we'll uncover this playbook that ties them both together. And finally, we'll talk about what all of this means for what happens next. Okay, first things first, let's set the stage. You know, the global system we've all grown up with, the one that really kicked off after the Cold War, with the US pretty much in the driver's seat, well, it's changing, fast. You've got new powers rising, old friendships are getting a little shaky, and the basic rules of the game, they're totally up for debate. And this isn't some abstract college lecture. This is the real-world backdrop for what's happening. And that leads us perfectly to our first example, Iran. Now, when you see Iran in the news, it's usually about protests, right? Internal unrest. But that's honestly just scratching the surface. If you really want to get what's going on, you have to understand just how important Iran is on the world map. This is a country that sees itself as a huge deal, a major regional power. And that view? It puts them on a direct collision course with the global superpower. Yeah, this phrase right here says it all. For Iran, geography is destiny. Seriously, its power, its conflicts, why everyone is so focused on it, it all boils down to one simple thing you can't change, where it is on the map. So let's break down exactly why that location is such a big deal. Okay, let's unpack this concept, the rimland theory. It sounds complicated, but the idea is actually pretty simple. It says that whoever controls the coastal areas, the rim of that giant Eurasian landmass, well, they basically control the world. And would you look at that? Iran is sitting smack dab in a super critical piece of that rimland. And believe me, this isn't just some dusty old theory. It has been a major driver of U.S. foreign policy for almost 100 years. And this shows you exactly why that location is so powerful. I mean, think about it. Iran is like a natural fortress. It's surrounded by mountains and deserts, which makes it incredibly tough to invade. But at the same time, it's this crucial crossroads, a land bridge connecting all these different strategic regions. So if you control Iran, you basically have a say in trade, energy, and military movements across a massive chunk of the planet. And you can't talk about Iran without the history. It's so important. You know, after World War II, Iran was actually a key ally for the West in that whole Cold War chess game. But then came 1979, the revolution, and it completely flipped the board. Overnight, Iran went from being this pillar of American strategy in the Middle East to one of its biggest, most stubborn adversaries. And that spirit of defiance, it's a core part of who they are today. So here's the bottom line. The U.S. focus on Iran, it's not just about politics, not at all. It's about resources and pure geography. The country is sitting on huge reserves of oil and gas. And, like we just saw, it occupies some of the most strategic real estate on Earth. So from Washington's perspective, any challenge from Iran isn't just a challenge. It's a direct threat to American interests in that whole part of the world. Okay, now let's completely switch gears. We're going to jump thousands of miles away, right into America's own hemisphere. There's a totally different crisis that's been playing out in Venezuela. But as you're about to see, the reasons why the U.S. is so involved, well, they're going to sound awfully familiar. Just take a look at these reasons. From a strategic point of view, the U.S. wants to keep things stable in its own backyard. Makes sense. Economically, well, Venezuela has the largest proven oil reserves on the entire planet. Yeah, even more than Saudi Arabia. And geopolitically, the last thing Washington wants is for rivals, like Russia or China, to set up shop so close to home. Resources, strategic location, keeping rivals out. Does that ring a bell? And that brings us to the key question, the one that really ties all of this together. You've got this defiant regional power, Iran, halfway across the globe. And then you've got this neighbor in crisis, Venezuela. I mean, they couldn't seem more different, right? But the real connection, it's not in the countries themselves. It's in the reaction they've both provoked from the world's #1 superpower. And that reaction, it follows a very clear pattern. We can call it the hegemony playbook. Basically, it's the set of moves a dominant power makes to stay on top of the food chain whenever it feels challenged. So before we go further, let's get clear on this word, hegemony. It doesn't just mean being powerful. It means being so powerful that you get to write the rules of the game for everybody else. It's the position the US has had for a long, long time, and it's a position they work very hard to keep. Now this is where it gets really interesting. Just look at how this chart lays out the parallels. It's so clear. For both Iran and Venezuela, what's the number one resource at stake? Oil. What's the big geopolitical goal for the US? Well, it might be framed differently, but it boils down to the same thing: control. In Iran, it's about controlling that Eurasian rimland. In Venezuela, it's about controlling its own backyard. And the threat they pose? Both are seen as challenging US dominance, just in their own unique ways. Okay, so if that's the playbook, the big question is, what happens next? Where does the game go from here? We're shifting now from just analyzing what's happening today to really thinking about what it means for the future of global power. When you boil it all down, here's the big takeaway. These crises in Iran and Venezuela, they aren't the cause of global instability. They're the symptoms. They're the flashpoints in a much, much bigger story. A historic shift where that one superpower world, led by the US, is getting more and more pushback from other countries. This is literally what a changing world order looks like, happening right now. And all of that leaves us with one final, huge question. For a really long time, we knew the answer to this. But now, as you see countries like Iran push back against the status quo, and as crises like Venezuela's pull in other big players from around the world, the future is a lot less certain. The fight over what happens in these two countries, it's really a fight over something much bigger. Who gets to write the rules for the rest of this century?